Woohoo, we're live. I think we waited a couple minutes to get started here, so I think I'll just get starting. Introducing our next show and tell session for the joint IGeLU and ELUNA special interest working groups. This is put on by the Analytics, the Linked Open Data, and the Interoperability Special Interest Working Group. And today we have Joan Kolarek talking to us about setting up a Tableau web connector to work directly with the Alma API. Before we hand this over to Joan, I want to do a couple of housekeeping things. First off, this is the first time we're using a Google Hangout that is directly through YouTube rather than using the old Google Hangouts on air, which went away. That means we're not sure how questions and answers work. We used to have this Q&A functionality. I believe that is gone, but if you're watching on YouTube, you should have a chat box. If somebody would be willing to try typing something to that chat box while I'm doing these sort of intros, that would help us understand where to look for incoming questions and how to manage that. If you don't see a chat box, send me an email or hit one of us on Twitter and we'll try to figure out what's going on with that. Additionally, as always, we're looking for new and additional show and tell presentations. So if anyone has any ideas that they would like to do as one of these YouTube broadcasts, get in touch with one of the coordinators for the Linked Open Data Group. That's Laura Ackerman. For the analytics group, it's Margaret, who you see here, and Joan as well. And then for the interoperability group, that is Mehmet and Lucas Koster. Yay, test chat, that looks like it works. Cool. Additionally, I wanted to announce that coming up next month, there is going to be a virtual Primo New UI hackathon. That'll be December 12th through 16th. It's a week-long, spend some of your time working on that new JavaScript, AngularJS-based Primo UI, experimenting with it, and having a bunch of people working on it at the same time so that they can ask questions and share progress. And I really encourage people to get involved with that. ELUNA is putting that on, so if you're interested in working on that or being part of it, contact Alan Jones at the New School, and he'll get things set up. I imagine there will be an announcement of that coming on the Primo list and other places in the not too distant future. All right, well, without any further ado, I'm going to hand this off to Joan, and I'm excited to hear about the Alma API and using it with the Tableau web connector. So thanks for agreeing to present here, Joan.
No problem. Hi, everybody. Somebody know if I'm too loud or too soft. And also, I understand that I am currently sharing my screen so you guys can see the presentation. So actually, don't contact me if you have a problem. I suppose contact Corey and he can let me know. We have people, Ex Libris customers who are interested in Tableau have been meeting for about a year now. And at our last meeting, I promised to try and look into this. And at IGeLU, we talked about it and so on. And I finally sat down and tried writing one of these. I want everyone to understand I don't actually have an Alma installation of my own, so I kind of had to go do this without a lot of tools at hand. Anyway, so
Joan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're getting comments on the YouTube chat that your audio is kind of soft. Could you speak up or be closer to the mic by any chance?
I could. Does that help at all? Let me try some. I can always talk louder. People tell me I talk too loud very often, so I try not to. But I will try talking louder. So I'm going to talk about Tableau in general and what Tableau can do to talk to Alma. And then I'll go over what I did to create the web connector that I created, and then a few moments about what's next and some more information. That's the agenda for this meeting. And at the end, if we had time, Kevin at CUNY had asked me a question last night quite late, and I promised that I'd try to find time for general questions about Tableau at the end as well. So this is just a very brief reminder of what Tableau uses for data sources. And for example, the free version or the personal version can use Excel or text files, access, and so on. And one of the options is also something called web data connectors. So that's available on the most basic version of Tableau, not just the full, fancy, expensive version. And of course, it's also available on the full, because everything that's available in the basic version is available in the full version. And I threw in this slide too, just to say that Tableau has other features, other APIs, and I'm not talking about them. So how can Tableau talk to Alma? At ELUNA, I was told about an idea exchange idea that had been added not long ago, and they had asked Ex Libris if Tableau would be able to connect to the Oracle BI. At the time, Ex Libris answered that there was this problem with institution-specific information, et cetera, and of course, security. Since then, another idea has come up because Ex Libris will be offering a backup service, and there's some question as to whether people who subscribe to the backup service will be able to connect to that. So I Justin had added that idea exchange entry. And so people who are interested in talking about that route should definitely be in touch with him if you haven't seen his idea exchange entry. He, for example, is the one who told me about that backup thing that's in the air. Nobody knows whether it's going to happen. It's just in the air. But so far, that's been the only option that had come up. And when I was reading about web data connectors in Tableau, I thought to myself, this sounds like it could work with Alma APIs or Primo APIs. So what are web data connectors? Well, you can go to this link here on the page, which will be posted or is already posted, and read in far more detail about it. But very simply, it's a method for Tableau to read data from other sites. And it's JSON, XML, or HTML. It's pretty broad. And that means that we should be able to read from Alma and Primo APIs, but it's do it yourself at this stage. And just as an FYI, when I was investigating this, what I saw was that Alma has quote unquote JSON for the API, the analytics API, but what's in the JSON is actually XML. So that was just a fun little discovery as I was working on this issue. So what did I do? First of all, I went to a lot of different web pages to read what to do and get suggestions. And at the bottom of the presentation are a few, also in the middle, are a few links to pages that I used. Once I'd done that, I found that there was something called a web data connector simulator environment that was on GitHub, and that I could download that environment and test. It uses Node and NPM to run a server, and so that's the route that I chose to take. It seemed easiest. Once I'd done that, I had to rummage around in this test environment to find the files that I needed to add for Alma, and you'll see them below too. And another thing I had to do was find an Alma report to use, because like I said at the beginning, I don't actually have an Alma installation. We just started our implementation project here at Weizmann Institute, and we aren't getting a production version of Alma for a good month. So this has made it extra fun. Once I found the Alma report, then I had to figure out what to do with it and create a URL and so on. So that's just a general overview of what the different stages were. More specifically, one of the problems was when you're creating your API for Alma, you need a specific report path. And again, since I don't have my own Alma installation and haven't actually worked with analytics, that took me a bit of time to figure out. Maybe somebody who's worked with analytics more regularly wouldn't find this so confusing. But I just thought I'd let you know that I went to the main menu, I drilled down into the folders and found a report and copied that URL. And the URL looks something like what you see at the bottom of the screen here, and in it was path equals, etc. And I simply copied that and pasted it into the Alma API to create the report-specific API that I used for testing. So you'll see more of that later. So I won't go to the website where I got the GitHub simulator, but I can show you that this is basically what I downloaded. I think I got that one from someplace else, but there's this simulator here. And in order to use it, you have to run npm start from, whoops, I forgot to run that. So just a second while I run it. You can actually see me run it. I already got into my command prompt. So cd to the right place and do npm start. And that's going to start a web server from the command prompt. It'll take a while. We can ignore it now. And then I ran this, went to this link, which once, if my web starter is, if my web, yes, let me just wait until that web service starts. I forgot. It takes a while. I'll go to this URL in my web browser and it'll open a screen that looks like this, Web Data Connector Simulator. And what it shows on the screen is a place to enter a URL specific to my simulator. And then it's going to give me a way to see if my simulator is working. And believe me, I went through a lot of stages while I waited, while I tried to get that to work. That looks like it might be working now. Let's give that a moment. So now I'm running this on my local host, and you don't actually have to have this in order to create a web data connector, but it lets you see the results of what you're doing. It's a nice help. And if I write here Alma HTML, God willing, it'll still work. It gives me this pop-up button, get analytics data, and it shows me that it's got a feed from Alma. And down here at the bottom, it shows me that it has data. Now, this is very bare bones. Don't expect anything fancy. But I've got some kind of a report that contains an integer, 2 strings, and 2 more integers. Now, in all honesty, when I originally did this fetch table data actually worked, but for some reason now it doesn't seem to. And I haven't had a chance to go back and find out why it doesn't fetch the table data anymore. But no worries, that didn't stop it from working in Tableau when I tested it yesterday. So just to recap, I've gone to this website, Web Data Connector Simulator, downloaded the environment, set up node and npm, and there's instructions also there to do that. And now we're going to talk about what files I added in order to create the Alma data connector. So this, sorry, I forgot that I put the slides about what happens next in here. But before I get to that, let's go here. What files did I change? Sorry, I'm kind of confused today. So I basically had to change files in 3 locations. One was this Alma HTML file, which simply calls the JavaScript file. this is the one where I had to make most of the changes, this Alma JavaScript file. And then there was another place that in order to get the simulator to run properly, I had to make some changes. And you can see in the Alma HTML, I did almost nothing. I just put in the word Alma in a few places. That was dead easy. It's not the whole file, obviously. The Alma JS, I had to completely rewrite. I am not an expert coder. I've never worked with jQuery before. I haven't worked with JavaScript much in the last 10 years or so. So this was really a fun thing to do. But I basically set up something that reads the schema out of the API XML. And after it, actually, I told it what the schema would be. It doesn't read the schema. That's an important point. And then I fed it my Alma API call, which you can see here. Alma hosted Ex Libris, WS, analytics reports, limit 1,000 lines. Here's my API key, and then the path that I showed you before that I had grabbed from a report. And then once I give it the API key, it does a call to Alma and says, grab these columns here, grab my data, and return it. So that's basically all it is. And there was, like I said, there was this third file that I touched, but again, I changed almost nothing in the third file. The real one is the Alma.js file. And having done that, now let's run the Tableau demonstration part of it. So we saw that, you know, take my word for it, if this wasn't working, we wouldn't get this column 0 through 4. Once that was working, I knew I had something going. And now I can go into Tableau Public or any Tableau. And in Tableau Public, Web Data Connector is here. And that brings up another screen eventually. There we go. Nice little thing that since I already did this once, I actually have a recent link used here, so I don't even have to remember my URL. It's here. And I click on that and it gives me that button again. That's the way this simulator was set up to run. It's to say get analytics Alma analytics data. And again, now we wait, but you see it's actually connecting, processing a request. Something's happening. Something is happening. And eventually it's going to show me something, unless. So I need I need this to run on a server somewhere. That's why I have the local host. And there we have my column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I said, very bare bones. And these are values that I filled in my HTML and JS files. They're calling it Alma report, calling it Alma field, and all that. Now, if I say update, once again, it's running a query. And there we have data off of the Alma server, believe it or not. So once again, I would like to stress, this is data from the API sandbox. And I don't know of an interface that lets us go into the front end of Alma and manipulate that data. So it's kind of as is, or if we could, I suppose, change it with another API. Someone who actually has Alma would have both their API interface and the ability to change data and create analytics reports, and could check to see if they can change things and have the update reflected here. I can't do that without Alma. But drum roll, please. There we have data from the North American API server. And having done this, we could go and create a worksheet and do with this data. It's pretty boring. And it will eventually, you know, let us pull things around and drag and drop like we all know we can do in Alma. Measure values. There you are. So again, this is data from a report that was created in Alma. And just to lean on that point again, this API will not run a new report. It will not, you can't set up a report using the API. You can only go and get the results of a report that you've already created in Alma. So that's all that this Alma API does. It gets the results from an existing report. And back. So I just threw some slides in here showing that whole process. There's the URL that I used, which if you followed the instructions in the simulator example, you'd be doing the same thing. There's this Get Analytics Data button, and so on. That was all just in case it didn't work. So that's basically what I did. Now, what do we do with that is the next question, because that's just this one report. And will it work for ongoing updates? I have no idea because I don't have an environment. So it would be great if somebody could do this sort of thing with a working Alma environment and build and save a viz, and then, you know, make changes to the data. Whoops, that's not the right place I wanted to go. Because in theory, in Tableau, you'd have a saved viz, you'd make changes to the data, and then you should be able to go to data, Alma feed, and refresh, and I believe it would send the API again and continue. But what the reality of that theory needs to be checked is to see whether there's hiccups in the way or things that, you know, I haven't anticipated that I'm just not seeing because I don't have a working environment. But we see it's running an update. It seems like it would have brought me new data if it had it. So that's one to do. Also, let's just go back and get, sorry, let me remind you what I need to do. In here, as we saw, we have the I call. And if we look inside that, I'm just going to plug that into a browser and run it and get the XML back. What we see when we look at the content of that XML is that there's this section up here at the top. Row up here, the XSD schema. So what I've extrapolated from what I've seen here is that every report that comes through prefaces the content with a schema, an XSD. So in theory, it's possible to write an interface that will take any report, check out this XSD, and build the query in response to what's in this API result. And then you won't have to rewrite a different JS file for every single report. So that's my theory. Again, I don't have an environment to test that in yet. And it might even be, you know, a little hard for me because I am a beginner at this. So that would be another nice thing to see if that could be done. Let me get back to there, which is to use that schema section in the API XML to structure on the fly for the data connector. If there are security issues in here, I haven't even begun to think about that. Will this same format work with a Primo API with, you know, small changes? I'm hoping yes, but I don't have Primo either, and I won't get Primo until January. I'm really not complaining. What about, would we be able to combine data from different web data connectors, like a little bit from Primo API, a little bit from Alma API, maybe bring in some outside data? That's another thing that would be interesting to try. And above all, I'd love to get Ex Libris involved in the development, because I think it would be wonderful if they would simply give us a generic web data connector that would read that schema, as I just suggested, and maybe even at the point where who knows, where it asks, if this get analytics data button comes up, maybe there'd be even a way to throw in your report name there into a text field and really have it build it on the fly. I have no idea if any of that would work, but that was just a thought. I have lots of dreams. And then if they did that, then they could give us a Tableau web data connector on their analytics, on their integrations page, which is really my dream. So after this meeting, I thought I would enter an idea exchange. I have never done an idea exchange before. It's time for that, to suggest that Ex Libris should develop a Tableau web data connector for us, for Alma and Primo APIs. And I hope that people will come along and say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So that's just a few of the things that I think could still be done to improve this first proof of concept toy that I made. So moving on, like I said, I did a lot of reading on the web before I started out. There's some web data connector tutorials. Tableau actually provides a lot of really useful information. There's something called Tableau Junkie. I actually had a lot of trouble getting the call right from the JS file. I think I used a post, though. In the end, I forget what I did. I tried a lot of different things. And in the end, I used Yoel's examples of how analytics works with, and once I saw how that was working, I managed to get a working version for this web data connector. So that was actually incredibly helpful. There were 2 examples like that. And of course, Dilbert has to chime in as well. And just as a little promotion for some meetings that we had done of interested parties, interested Ex Libris users who were also using Tableau, we had we've had several meetings, and they were recorded, 1, 2, and 4. These are links which I believe still work. I tested one of them yesterday and it still worked. And what we talked about, I gave you a little summary here of what we talked about if you want to go and listen and see what other people were doing. We also had a meeting at ELUNA. And of course, there'll be this show and tell, which hopefully I've got the right link in there, which was a YouTube link. But, and I am hoping that this Tableau Ex Libris interest group can continue helping each other, and perhaps every 2 or 3 show and tells we could have one on analytics, since I'm a big proponent of that. So that's, if people have ideas of things they'd like to talk about, or to know if other people are doing, and we could try and find somebody who's with examples and so on. That could be an interesting use of the show and tells to help develop analytics abilities together with Tableau. And actually, I talked very fast. I hope that wasn't too bad. And yet another of my favorite Dilberts. And that's what I have to say. If people have questions, we can do that. And if Kevin's on the call, we could also do a Q&A on Tableau issues. It's very quiet. Is someone there?
Joan, that was great. This is Margaret.
Hi.
Thank you.
So I believe that the presentation is or will be posted. Mehmet, did you say you'd done that?
Yeah. I've also put in a link in the chat, and all presentations, and a link to the YouTube presentation, or the show will be on the IGeLU Special Interest Working Group page. So I'm just looking if there are any questions. Betsy asks if the Tableau Alma group has a list at this point, and how are the group meetings announced?
Well, we were announcing them, on the listserv, and this one, basically, my ambition is to, instead of trying to have this separate group, that we would start meeting under the auspices of the Show and Tell. I don't know how that'll work out, but this is the first attempt to do that. On the other hand, our group meetings that we had up till now were much more interactive than they are now, which was why I was trying to get Kevin from CUNY to chime in and ask a question so we could be interactive today.
Mhm.
Or if anybody else has a Tableau question. But that was the structure, that we would have a couple people come and present what they've done with Tableau. And you see here in the second meeting, Christina from NYU, Jennifer from SUNY presented stuff that they had done, Kevin also. And so that's kind of the format that we had been using. And if this does work out, then, and it's okay to continue in the Show and Tell framework, then, say every 3 or 4 months, we would say, okay, we're going to have a Tableau analytics Q&A, and if anybody has something to present, please let us know, that kind of thing. And we do that on the listserv. And there is also the analytics special interest working group listserv, which is a place where people, if they have things that are general analytics issues, could come and talk or present. It's just brand new, and we could presumably post that too, Emmett. It's I don't know if everybody knows, but the Notre Dame listservs are still going away. Is that true? Eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
And so there's a little bit of flailing around, I think, happening as a replacement is found. And so the analytics and other special interest working groups have for now ended up on a Berlin, whose server is that?
From the Free University of Berlin.
Free University of Berlin. So when you see a link, it'll be public IGeLU analytics SIWG from lists.freeuniversity-berlin, fu-berlin.de. The special interest working group on analytics, public list. And if there are, anything that's specific to an Ex Libris product and about analytics, it should be posted on that product's listserv still. But if you want to talk about Tableau or cross-product integration, or issues that the analytics special interest working group can help with, for example, the future direction of analytics, talking to Ex Libris about that, that's the sort of thing that would definitely be appropriate to this group. Margaret, you can chime in if you want.
There is also a Slack channel that we are trying to set up for all working groups and special interest working groups. I will post a link in the chat. So if you follow that link, you can sign up if you haven't already. And you can join the conversation on the Slack channel. The analytics people also have a channel there, so you can talk to them through the Slack channel too.
Cool.
That's great. This is the first I've heard that the analytics group has a channel there. I don't know who's been responding to those. If Joan has it and I haven't.
I don't know. It's John set it up a while ago. So
Okay. Okay.
okay.
We'll get in touch with him
Yeah.
to figure that out.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? So if
So I could just, again, in summary, I do want to stress that I made sure to include in here, since I'm too lazy to do a GitHub or something like that, all the, this is the full file. This is the Alma.js file, the full thing that I wrote. And the other two files where I made small changes, I just showed what I did in them so that if you wanted to go and download it, if anybody wants to go and try this, they do have all of the information here in the
That's great.
presentation.
Thanks, Joan.
It's full of links. So, please. Also, if you do go and try it, email me at joankolarik@ill, because I'd really like to find out if other people use this, if they have success, if it works in a more complicated situation. Hope to hear. Hopefully, there's somebody there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Joan. Well, I was just looking if there are still any questions, and I see that David from Curtin has a suggestion, but I don't know what the suggestion is. So, he hasn't put it in the chat yet. So, but if you have suggestions, comments. If you want to do a presentation yourself on anything, doesn't have to be technical. It can also be a functional presentation about a certain idea you have, and if we, the special interest working groups, being analytics, interoperability, linked data, KBAP, so the the knowledge base advisory board or the consortia groups, or anybody, if anybody of the special interest working groups can be of any help, let us know, and we'll definitely try to be of any assistance on doing show and tells, and also on talking to the other product working groups and ex libris. Okay, David has posted this question or this suggestion. Yeah, definitely, David. So if send me an email, and then we can set up a show and tell for next month or maybe January. So we'll discuss what the right timing is.
Since we have a little bit of extra time, Kevin says he's on the call, but he's not talking. And I was going to try and find an example. Kevin asked how you set up fiscal year, how you do a fiscal year in Tableau. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare.
Which is where Joan was, I think, before she moved to the Weizmann Institute.
Sorry, I'm hearing something. Let's see if I can do it on here. Unless somebody else has a question, I thought we've got 20 minutes. People who aren't interested can hang up, but Kevin did ask me this question yesterday. So just by way of recap, hopefully anybody that's used Tableau knows that you can, oh, that's annoying. You can display by, month, but you can also say that the year starts according to a fiscal year, not just in January. You can determine what year is the beginning. go. I just realized that I'm in Tableau Public. That's my problem. And I'm trying to open from my. Let's try that. And so he was asking where that is. And basically, if you go to the dimensions on a date, if I ever get Tableau open, I can show it. But if not, let's close that. If you right click on a date in the dimensions, down at the bottom or towards the bottom, about over halfway down, there's something called default properties. And in that, at the bottom of that list is something called fiscal year start, and you can set it to any start that you want. And if this opens, I might be able to display that eventually. Tableau does take a while to start up on my computer. And so this is the kind of thing that we tried to do in our little support group. It's a bunch of people from the US, Canada, and a few other countries who just got together every couple months to talk about Tableau online, mostly. And still trying. We're getting there. I seem to have opened up 2 instances. That can't be good. I'll be brave and try closing one. Okay, executing the query, getting somewhere. Somebody's microphone, perhaps?
Sorry about that.
It's nice to know I'm not alone.
I was trying to get my mic to work again because it wasn't working before.
So, for example, in this report or viz, over in the dimensions, like I said, there's a date here. We see that it's a date because it's got a little date icon. And when we go here into default properties, year start is. So you can pick any month you want and tell your data to count a year. And that actually doesn't change the way it displays here. I mean, I've chosen to display it here through another method by changing the axis, but it does if you have a dashboard and you have a fiscal year drop down like this, that's what determines the months that are included in each of those groups. So I hope that's what Kevin was asking about. I'm not sure. I saw his email last night at midnight. And that's all I have to say. So if there are no other questions, we can totally end this.
Okay. Let's quickly go through the questions or through the chat. No, I don't see any questions. So thank you, Joan, for doing this show and tell. Well, And okay, somebody is putting some stuff in there. So my data starts with fiscal year 2015, and I want to remove fiscal year 2014, which is blank. Does that mean anything to you?
That actually sounds like something. I mean, you could try to do it with the filter, or you could do it by. Whoops, let me get off the dashboard and get back to the actual viz. That's the sort of thing that you can also control by going into edit oops, that's alias, that wasn't access. Axis. You can go into the axis, which for some reason is not. There we go. Where's the axis? Let's try. I'm not sure why I'm not getting to the axis here. Edit alias, which is not surprising since I'm on a single one. Well, if you can get into the axis, you should be able to make that change. It's kind of funny. I haven't been in Tableau for like a month or more.
Well, maybe Kevin should contact you directly and
Sure.
and to solve it offline.
Yeah,
So
there's no reason to do it online.
okay, thank you again, John, for doing the show and tell. So again, if anybody else has a presentation that he or she wants to give, we'll definitely be interested in it, and hope to see you very soon back at the new show and tell. And don't forget the Primo UI hackathon next month. So thank you.